vision, then you have the people. The real thought about the right people on the bus is you have the right people, and then the vision comes after that, which is a different way to look at it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. You kind of got to assess the people in the room, at the table, and find out what their gifts and strengths are, and then kind of empower them along those lines. And that's kind of, where we've got enough people in this room to do this. Let's focus on getting that part done.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I tell you guys? I don't remember if I told the story or not, but did I tell you what happened when I inherited the area of Littleton and the committee? Did I tell you that story? So when I was leaving Whitworth, we were looking at several different life areas, and the one that we really felt, we said no to all of them, and the one we felt called to was Littleton. And so the minute, I'll never forget this, we said no to Snohomish, which would have been under Jeff Vansel, which was my first choice. And then I went over to Carrie's apartment, which was right up here by the library, and I told her, I said, hey, good news, got the first choice, Snohomish. And, knocked on her door and stuff, and she'd been taking a nap, and she said, that's not where we're supposed to be. And I was like, son of a, are you kidding me? It's through the process. I said, God can tell you this like a month ago. And she's like, no, I just have this feeling we're not supposed to be there. I was like, crap. And so I called Terry Stokesbury back to this. I said, Stokesbury, we got a problem. And I said, she doesn't want to go to Snohomish. We were engaged at the time. He goes, well, why not? He goes, I don't know, some BS about not feeling cold there. I don't know. And he goes, well, you haven't said no to Colorado yet. He goes, I could call Bill Maston down there and see if there's still a spot. And so I'm like, all right. And we had no other options, actually. And so we get on the plane. 48 hours later, we're on the plane together. And the minute the wheels landed at DIA, I knew this would be our home for a number of years. And then Bill picks us up. And Bill's just an incredible guy. We're driving around. And this has been, the area's struggled for 22 years. This area's never been strong financially. And, committee's kind of bad. And,
you're going to love it.
Welcome to Colorado.
And because he knew we had nowhere else to go. So he's like, yeah, you're going to want to replace that committee at some point. And I'm like, all right, what does that mean? And then so anyways, we accept the job. And then Bill shows up and he's like, and then you're going to run out of money come April if things don't change. I was like, yeah, Bill, you suck, man. And I was like, okay, this is weird. And so he goes, and don't forget, you're gonna need to replace this committee. So you have until April. And I remember I was sitting out by the pool, it was the fall. And in Colorado, you can do that until like October into November. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, there is an 85% chance this area goes bankrupt. I'm like, well, I'll just call Stokesbury again and find somewhere else to go, I suppose. I have my first committee meeting. And it occurred to me, if this committee stayed in place, there were 8 of them or 10 of them. This area is bankrupt by April. So our first committee, I was like, this committee.
You're 22?
I'm 22 years old. And I'm thinking, this committee, what's the word? I was like, it sucks. Like in every sense of the word. And I think half the people are jerks. So that was my assessment of it. So I called us after that was one committee meeting. We had this banquet, which was a disaster, and it raised $900. It was so bad.
But that was back then. So
I had been in the area for 25 days when we had this banquet, so just justify that.
Sound familiar, Curtis?
There you go, Curtis.
The big discussion was, the night before the banquet or the week before was, do we charge for cake or not? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So we have this $900 banquet. And then the next week I called the committee together. And I said, I wanted to thank you all, not for the banquet, but for like serving. And I said, you guys kept the area together. We didn't have an area director for a year, and you guys did it, and you've been working hard, and so I'm going to graduate y'all off. And so we don't need to come to another committee. Thank you, and I appreciate you, but you guys need a rest. And one guy's like, what? He's like, this guy named Larry. He's like, are you firing us? I said, no, I'm graduating you. It's like a diploma. He's like, no, I know what you're saying. And so it was so awkward. Then they all leave, and it was just like, it was just weird. And then I get into Maston's office, because we office together, and I walk in, and Maston goes, what the F, Parker? He's like, did you just fire your committee last night? I've been getting calls all morning, and they're pissed at you. They hate you. And I said, well, yeah, remember, Bill, you said replace the committee? And he goes, yeah, in the first year, not in the first 25 days. And I said, Bill, I'll tell you what, man, there is not one person I could bring on this committee and feel good about it. The committee sucked and you knew it. You know it. And he's like, yeah, okay. And I'll never forget it. His exact words were, all right. He goes like, do you want me to call and get everyone back? I said, not if you want me to be here after April. And he goes, all right. And he goes, and his exact words were, and pardon the expression, but he's like, if you have the balls to fire your committee, I have the balls to stand behind you for this one. And so we left it as is. And all of a sudden, God raised up all these amazing people. And there's the idea that we never know the bigger picture of what God's doing, right? And so we have these all-stars. I get a guy who sat on the board for Colorado Christian University, and then a couple moved in from Texas that were just amazing. And a year, 2 years later, Bill would say that was it was a very strong committee. And then Columbine happens. And I never could have predicted why. There was a conviction to fire the committee, no doubt. But we never know what God's doing in our areas. And it may not be a Columbine, it may be something different. But at the end of the day, that's why it's so important we have the right people on the bus. That's why it's so important we have the right people in place. Because God's doing something deeper that we probably don't even detect. Remember in Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis says all the time, the most common phrase in heaven is, oh. I think that's what he says, right? Oh, right. Because at some point we're going to see everything God's doing, and it's going to make some level of sense to us. These jobs are important. And I don't know if I told you this last time or not, but when I was in Colorado, I remember the president of Colorado Christian and I were talking one day, and he had been an area director. And he said, if you can be an area director, you can do anything in this world. And I believed him. And that statement changed a lot of my trajectory. And looking back, he's right. If you can manage people and lead people, if you can raise money, if you can develop vision, learn to put people, the right people on the bus in the right seats, you can do anything you want later on. And you'll do something great for Jesus. So that's why I'm so convicted on this stuff, because what you do as an area director sets the tone, it sets the culture, and it gives, I almost wonder if the biggest job description for an area director is to till the soil so God can do his best stuff. Because at the end of the day, that's all we do, right? We're tilling the soil. So if we look at chapter 3, here is my biggest struggle as an area director, my biggest struggle in everything, politics and business and so forth. If you look at the first paragraph where it starts with unfortunately, the second sentence says, instead, and you can substitute organizations. Organizations are operated according to what the owner wants, as opposed to what the organization needs. I've learned that one of my glaring and many faults is I think I know best for what our company needs. And when I was area director, what our area needs. Everything from, I know how to design the t-shirt that I thought was awesome that no kid really ever wore again because it was lame, to little experiments I've done with Dutch Bros on carrying certain products that I think are going to be awesome that nobody wants, because there's a difference from what we want and what the organization needs. There's a profound difference. And so the question is, how do we find out then what the organization needs or what our area needs? If we don't fully trust ourselves, then how do we know?
You ask.
Ask God.
Yeah. Well, I think you ask your area, you ask your people.
Good people, and then you ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't hear God very well, so I need to ask him.
I can relate to that.
Sometimes God's just saying the things that you're thinking anyway.
Mhm.
But how do we know the people in our area know? Like if Jeff comes to us and says, how should we run the region? You guys are area directors, so you're gonna have some insight, but we've not one of us in the room has done that job. Were you ever regional director at one point?
No.
Okay, so none of us but Jeff have done that job. So if Jeff says, hey, what do you guys think? Where should we go? We are speaking on very limited capacity. We are speaking on one part of the puzzle that we see, and we're drawing the assumption of the other 499 pieces. So if we come to the conclusion that we might not have all the answers, the people around us may not have all the answers, then how do we know what our area needs? What do you guys think?
Is it part of like knowing your audience? Like what is our audience? You know, millennials or high school students, what do they need at their school? And I don't know, seeing what, research on them. Knowing their audience.
But also just talking to someone who's been there, asking someone who's been successful, seeking out someone that is been successful in your position or is an entrepreneur and they're trying new things and they have a different way of looking at it. Sometimes it's good to get a perspective that isn't just another area director. As someone who can ask you questions that are business questions, you might be kind of annoying, but it has you look at it through a new angle, a new lens, and maybe causes me to sit back and now looking at my job from a new angle besides just the angle that me and my peers look at it from.
Yeah, maybe it's the idea that we're always a student. If disciple means lifelong learner, maybe it's the idea that we're a disciple. And that we're not only reliant on ourselves. Now, one of my favorite Aristotle quotes is, how can we be interested in others if we're just interested in ourselves? And when I look back at my 5 years as an area director, those were probably some of the most fun years of my life. They were probably also some of the most selfish years of my life too. And I think my wife would say that. I think she would say, I was a better husband off staff than on staff because I was so consumed with what I was doing and the way that I was building the area that ministry became a cruel mistress at the end of the day. Because I was interested in myself, even more so than when I was interested in how God was moving. And so the vision is limited, and it's tainted.
And that's a tough thought to wrestle with, I think, in regards to our ministry and how it's set up and what they expect, what we naturally expect from ourselves. I mean, as we shared a month ago, and also for those of you who were there, we shared just kind of where everyone was at a few weeks ago at a little retreat. And the problem is, most people in this position relate to that. So what do we do with that? The sacrificing family and spouse, and me knowing I can get more done than Tyler because I have more time, I don't have any kids and a wife, which is a good thing and a bad thing. And so, it's just an interesting tension that I really hate about our jobs.
Yeah. There's a lot of temptations with this job for sure, and they all look great. They are gold-plated temptations. Remember when I was at the Kennedy School back east, a guy from Mexico named Roberto and I, we were in class together. We went to a Celtics game one night, and he was such an interesting guy. He was my roommate too, and we were hanging out. And Roberto had been in the Congress in Mexico, and he said one of the things that he was learning in life was that he has spent too much of his life trying to light the neighborhood when the lights in his own house were dark. And I've never forgotten that. The way he said that too was just such a profound thought to me. And that, I think that metaphor would mark my time as an area director. I think there were times where I did a decent job lighting the neighborhood, but I think there were more times where I was not worried about making sure the lights were on in my own home. And I'm lucky I'm married to the woman I am. I think most women would have left me, but Carrie got it, and she became a believer through Young Life. But if you were to ask her, she'd say, "Oh yeah, I felt on the back burner for the first 2 years of our marriage because we got married and we moved to Colorado, and then I'm running an area, and she was on the back burner."
Or to put another way, that we're supposed to be fountains of water flowing out to people. Fountains are generally immovable. So then it's not that the fountain has to go places and share the water. It's like our job is to be filled up to overflowing.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And that's where all of this stuff comes in, because the better job we do in theory, the more efficient we become. And the more efficient we become, the more time, I think one, the tighter the organization that God can do stuff with. It also brings some balance to our life as well. And maybe the organization becomes a little less overwhelming. And as we have more balance, we get to take care of ourselves more. We get to spend more time with our friends and spouses or families or partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever it may be. But that's another reason why how to run an organization, I think, is really important.
Is there, I mean, it's a different job and it's a different role and all are needed. There seems like, I don't know, from your perspective, like seeing from 3,000 feet or where, and then obviously going down and doing, but like, seems like there's a tension between stepping away from a technician because we feel like when I have a good administrative day, I think I'm a success. When I've just been solving, problems or feeling lost and trying to figure out where to go, the wheels are falling off the track. Like I'm not saying that well, but it seems like being more efficient I think there's some false guilt that I carry. There's some false guilt in not being on the front lines, if that makes sense.
Well, KJ, I think what you're saying is, you know, we all get into this business for less than pure motives, you know. And, you know, you look back for me, I think it was, I just needed a platform to be Kent, you know, so I got into this youth ministry thing. I mean, I remember telling Linda, when I was a business major out of college, and then I got hired at this church. I remember said, I just got a few skits left in me, honey. I'll get back to the real world. That was my answer. Because I needed to perform. I mean, I needed the stage, you know. Then it turned in forever. But, so, I mean, I think I'm just learning now more, and it's been hard, because I've had 30, maybe some years of creating my stage, to be on the back burner, and like for the first time this year, I have not taught hardly at all at our student staff times. But I'm giving it to Catherine, who's incredible, and Jack Dunbar, who's hitting it out of the park, and Kaylee, who now I just sit there. It's, you know, and it feels really bad, actually. But I think it's what the business needs. But it just feels bad. I mean, just based on who, you know, you gotta know yourself, right?
Can you feel more effective in certain areas though, too?
Well, I think, you know, I would like to think that when I meet with people, I'm a little bit more effective now. Like people, when I get coffee. And so I'm trying hard to embrace this older grandpa figure that I'm.
Mentor doesn't mean grandpa.
I just feel like-
You're not that
No,
old.
Grandpa, we
None of us knew how to respond to that, right?
You're not that old.
Yeah, I mean, this just older, it's just different. Like, I was talking to Lindy the other day, and I mean, I'm the best dang guitar music player on earth. And I haven't led worship at our church. We started for a year. And I think it's because and now I kind of don't do it at student staff now either. And part of it is I'm just embracing, even though I'm really good with those cake and all that stuff, it's actually better when Joyce, who's 20, who just knows, you know, she only has 3 chords and a capo, I can, you know, name a key, I go crazy, but it's just better for her to do it. And so it's just sort of I know, it's kind of this funny place where I'm just kind of looking at things very differently, even right now in this phase. And I'm asking, what does this need? It doesn't need me necessarily to step in. It needs me to empower somebody else to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, and
That was
that's,
a long diatribe, sorry.
that's difficult too. Because I've just got Lydia and I've got 2 administrators that are kind of taking on some responsibilities. A lot of times people don't do it the way you would do it.
Right.
And you have to be okay with that. You have to go, well, did it serve the purpose? And yet you also have to walk alongside them
Right.
and give them the tools.
So it's a lot
Necessary.
more work on the get-go. And if you
Yes.
think that it's kind of like that abdication we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Abdication. Yeah.
That's the next chapter.
Coming,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm ahead. I'll save that thought. But yeah, it takes more work on the beginning end to jump in with people, show them how to do it, give them feedback when they do it, you know, that it feels easier to do it ourselves. And then when they don't do it right, it reinforces in our head about how, you know what, we shouldn't have let them do it.
Yeah.
And then we waste the lesson.
But what about the idea though, if we don't empower and develop others, our areas are really limited on how much they can grow.
They're all based on us.
And that's
Yeah.
what we're gonna see Sarah, I mean, we're starting to see Sarah struggle, right? And I bet you we all identify with her, with that feeling.
When I do a lot of leading my area from behind, I would say, like I'm trying to let them, what I call failing forward, as long as they aren't gonna do an epic fail.
Yeah.
Which we haven't had an
Epic
epic
fail.
one yet that takes down the area, but it does make me nervous for sure. So like at a leaders meeting, like last week, I literally just sat there waiting for them to come up with an idea for club. We were just like, for half an hour, nobody could think of anything, and I knew I could give them something, but I wasn't going to. Like, you guys can figure this out, it's not that difficult, I mean, come on. So we painfully sat through until people got their brains working.
And here's the irony. If Rayburn was walking around, I think he would feel the same about all of us.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you guys ever listened to his old talks?
Yeah.
They're not like
You
what we
guys
do
are
today.
painful, man.
That John Stott theory didn't come into what, the 80s? That's when we started modeling that. But Rayburn was not, our club talks today are nothing like what Rayburn did. Our clubs are nothing like
All right,
Rayburn.
tonight we're gonna talk about propitiation. Say it with me.
Exactly.
Propitiation. Say it again. All right. What does it mean? I've heard them.
Kevin, what about the other side of that too, though, where you have certain gifts that you've been placed on this earth to share with the world and train the world and to live out of your passions too, whether that's playing the guitar. There might be times where you need to model and let somebody do it, but to spend, there's this, Brent Cunningham, he said, I spend 95% of my day in my sweet spot. And that's just given, so, and for me, I don't know what my percentage is, but it's probably not that, probably not even close to that. So I think there's something to say of, you know, maybe handing stuff off, but if you keep handing off the stuff that you feel uniquely gifted, you know,
Yeah.
to do, and like the Lord's placed you on this earth to either, and not just you to, it's the KJ show or whatever, but to pass it on to the next generation as well. I think we're probably doing a disservice to what God created.
Well, you hand stuff off so you can do what gives you life.
Yeah.
But not hand off everything.
Yeah, not everything.
I mean, I think it's already been maybe 2 years since I've heard Ken do worship on the piano, and that's my favorite.
Yeah.
So you can imagine my
Me
frustration.
too.
Yeah.
I know. I'm
starting to get super
frustrated by
pissed.
that.
Will declare.
Got guitar once last year, haven't had piano for 2 years.
Son of a-
Bring it back.
Come on, I'm buying you a keyboard.
But here's the cool thing about being an area director. It's the same thing
Okay,
about
I'm
Fresh
gonna
helping
have
you
to
guilt.
step
Is
back.
we get to
My wheels are
create,
spinning.
we get to create our jobs to live into our gifts. That's the
Right.
coolest thing. And so in theory, we should be shedding the things we're not great at. That's the whole idea of manager, technician, and entrepreneur. There's other people who have, though, our weaknesses are other people's gifts. And even now at Dutch Bros, I mean, in some sense, I do a lot, in some sense I do very little, depending how you look at it. Like, I don't do anything I'm not good at right now, so there's only really a couple things I do, but I do those things all day long. And that's the same thing with being an area director. Like, if you're good at asking for money, and if you're good at creating a vision and building into people, then that's what you do. And that's what you do every single day. And then you find a way for those three worlds to collide on a daily basis. And that's what's so exciting. And so maybe part of this is going back and looking at your job description and say, what am I really good at? And what am I not good at? And why am I doing the things I'm not good at? And how do I get the people around me that are good at and proficient in those ways so that they can bring those gifts to the area?
I guess my tension is I just want that to happen right away. I'm like, okay, how do I just like do that? You know, like, and it just I'm just not patient enough to like go through, like, I want to get this booming committee and these rocking team leaders and all this adult support so that I can focus on the 3 areas that I love about my job and offload the rest. But just like, my intention is like, it's gonna take a while, and we have to do a lot of the stuff that I don't want to do in order to get there, you know? Unless I'm doing it wrong, which I probably am. So please don't.
Yeah.
I think
You
you're doing it right.
Well,
Chris.
first
You
thing,
can't,
you
you
can't
can't bypass time.
Yeah.
It is
Well, he
frustrating.
did reorganize.
Kind
it.
of.
I think the distinction in that for me is, I mean, that same idea, but it's having the people to hand stuff off to. I mean, it's like, I don't know how many can say, I have a booming committee. I think we struggle with like, okay, we're stuck doing this because there aren't, or maybe we're just bad at handing off, but like there aren't the people around us to.
Or you can't find them.
Or we can't find them or invite.
Just
So,
break up the region.
so I think, I mean, some of it's just like, yeah, it's great theory, but they're all volunteers, and I think I always have that mentality of like, well, I'm paid to do this, so I need to do all the dirty work, or it's harder to find and say, oh, I can hand off this thing to someone else.
Yeah, so you asked the question, like for you, I know it's like, we talked forever about, I need some people that have a passion around Eastern, you know? So, and would hold this vision, or for how long have you been dreaming for that right committee chair, or, you know, they're not coming out of the woodwork, you know?
Yeah.
And then it weighs on your ability, maybe it's just me, I am not that magnetic vision caster, I'm not, you know? And that's where you start to go, and that's where area diggers quit, because you know, they'll go, oh, you know, it's not my call or something. Yeah, I get it.
Now, one of the things I've been saying to people, and I've shared this a couple of times, that seems to be life-giving is asking them what part of Young Life they love, and if they could design their own job in Young Life, what would it be? And about 3 times now, I've gotten this eyebrow raised when you ask that question, because these people that I've been talking to are passionate about Young Life, but they don't feel that synergy in there. You know, where am I getting my life from? And I said, well, if you were, what would it look like? You just get challenge them. So, and that's helped.
Mhm.
I think setting realistic time frames is something that has been, I've been trying to like hammer into my brain. Cause like Curtis talking about like, what's the, you know, we wanna have our stuff all together. It's like, yeah, I wanna have all my stuff all together as quickly as possible. And I can tell when it's not together, but I want it to be together. So then I don't appreciate what I have right now because I know what I want it to be. And then I want it to be soon. And so it's like my life is this ongoing, just downward shame spiral. But I just saying like
Exactly.
That's a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's it. Young Life area
I'm in
director.
the downward
Downward
shame.
shame.
I got a bad case of DSP.
But I
That's a
don't
good
know,
one.
but I don't know how to like just appreciate where I'm at and say I'm like, yeah, maybe what I want is like a 5-year plan. It's not a 6-month plan.
I
'Cause
remember.
I think we hear a lot of like, hey, you by April you need to have your committee all together and dialed in, or else you don't have a job. Like that's what I hear a lot more often. Not like, hey, it took so and so like 10 years to get there. Pace yourself, or like we run it in this sense of urgency all the time. Of, you need to be perfect at this date.
Right.
Yeah, and just the discernment of knowing, like, sometimes you need to, like, make a change quick, you know, and trying to discern, like, when is that time, and when is the time it's like, yeah, no, you do need to play the long game here. Make it a quick change.
I'm not advocating you'll go fire all your kids.
I wrote that down.
Just
so.
to be clear. I'm trying.
That's what we're doing.
I'll call you later, I know how it
It's
is.
a solution.
I think it's so interesting because like Jeff's hasn't really, it's interesting how we just get perspective on what people think we should do, but nobody's probably ever told us that. Like Jeff hasn't told me how to do my job or
Expectations.
Yeah, our expectation, like he, you know, trusts us but there's so many things, like I think that we go to these trainings and we hear other people doing great things and we assume that that is truth and we need to take everything and use it, but the bottom line is we do have the freedom to design your own job and what would it look like, and maybe it's just allowing ourselves the freedom to dream in that a little bit more. I've heard you say that to me a few different times, Kevin, and yeah, maybe now it's gonna stick.
Remember too, Young Life was struggling in Gainesville until Rayburn tapped into those elderly 4 or 5 women across the street that were praying specifically for that high school, which I forget which high school it was now, but it didn't change until it was surrounded in prayer. And maybe we try to do too much. Maybe it's more of a narrowing of asking, what are those 3 things that I'm gonna do and do really, really well to build the area? Like, what are the 3 most important things that I can be doing? And that's where I'm putting 80 to 90% of my time. You guys have heard that analogy of that USC professor and the rocks and the pebbles? Well, it's still going around. Okay. Remember, he's got this big jar and he's got these rocks and pebbles and asks all the students, put these in, and whoever puts them in gets an A for the class. Nobody can do it. You put the 3 rocks in first, then you pour all the pebbles, right? Maybe sometimes we spend, and I'm not saying this to anyone in this room, but when I look at my life, I've spent too much time on pebbles at times and not enough time on the 3 rocks. So if your 3 rocks, whatever they may be, maybe it's committee, maybe it's fundraising, and maybe it's developing leaders, right? Just hypothetically, those are the 3 things that you do almost all day, every day. We don't try to do everything. We try to do the things that we can make the difference in, and that match our gifts.
Do you think that the rocks change though sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. They change.
I think there's seasons of rocks, you know,
Absolutely.
because like we're in camping season now, so it's got to be a.
Right.
Sometimes it's seasonally, and sometimes you redo your vision for the year, and it's like, you know, we've really given it a good go at this, now it's time to shift the attention. I think that's the good thing about coming back to that every year.
I think the
Sorry,
most
Ken.
important thing about vision casting is creating a common language. It's not as much important that you reach that milestone that you have set out there as it is that you begin thinking the same and moving the same direction down the field. And then it's a timing thing. You know, sometimes you have to interrupt your plans because an opportunity comes along. Sometimes you have to interrupt your plan because, you know, some threat has come up against you that you have to adjust. You don't have to feel guilty because you could conceive of something you could never get there, or at least in a time frame that's acceptable.
What else about this chapter that you guys drew out?
I was gonna say, I mean, the review was that we most function out of a tactician's mode. I mean, that's kind of was our default last time we were together, that we said, we're kind of tacticians. But there's nothing wrong with being a technician, or a technician, I mean. There's only something wrong with being a technician who owns a small business, which is
Right.
not cool. And then, you read on page 41, top of the page, the purpose of going into business is to get free of a job so you can create jobs for other people. And that's just a hard thing as an area director. When you feel the tyranny of the urgent all the time. And to think that we've actually gotten a little better over the last year over the number of emails that have demands that seem urgent, you know, and reports that seem urgent. I hear rumors that those might be even cutting down, like the only Newt is asking some questions about all the things we report on or whatever. But it's hard when Young Life, like you've said it, Eric, when you came in from the corporate world into Young Life, said, man, you guys have more checks and balances, and I've heard this a number of times, more train, you know, than any organization I've been a part of, you know, which is good. You know, like Curtis is like trained out over the last.
I'm so trained. Yeah, man, questions.
We had training like, you want some more training? That you just feel the tyranny of the urgent because of the demands of headquarters a lot. So it's hard for you to get onto the balcony to look when things are always popping. It's hard.
I got to Microsoft, they gave me a stack of manuals and a phone, and said the phone's ringing in a week.
Said what?
The phone is going to start ringing in a week. So you
Sure.
better listen, and you're gonna have to answer these questions on these books. So, not a whole lot of training.
You were in charge of the help desk?
Well, we were part of the whole
Support-
future help desk.
Support services.
Yeah.
And what we had to do, I mean, we learned,
Yeah.
you didn't know the answers, right? You just had to get their name down, figure it out, call back. We could do that in the first year and a half we did it. Then we had training. Then we had an enormous training department. And we spent $600 million on tech support. Found out it didn't make any difference. I just shrugged it out again.
I think it's interesting that you say that, Ken. I think there's a lot of tensions in Young Life that are different from, let's say, the corporate world, which I came from that as well. But the things like corporate and all the things that come down, that happens in the business world, very much so. And you have to deal with them. But you know, Young Life does have significant amount of tensions. I thought this was interesting though, when you read the top sentence, as it says, the purpose of going to business is to set free, or to set you free. And then he asks about the technician side. She asks, what if I want to remain a technician?
Yeah.
And he said, then get rid of your business.
Yeah.
Because we can't be technicians if we're area directors and growing an area.
That's why I put in my 2 weeks.
I'll show myself the door.
All retired at once.
But it's kind of interesting though. Just put the flag against. We do a lot of these booster assessments, you know. As everybody goes through, it says, "Oh, here's what the norm for an area director is. Oh, here it is, right here." And even if you're sometimes, because we've hired a few that are outside that norm, the booster still kind of goes, "You just got to know this. You're gonna be okay." You know. Sometimes you wonder, "Ooh, you know, there is a personality type." That you have to fly in to make a long-term career out of this job, I think. You know,
I would agree.
I'm not saying that Worcester should be a little more harsh, but it's interesting to think, you know, how to, because you could say this, well, if I'm a technician, I just need to get somebody around me who's an entrepreneur. Can we do that as an area?
Yeah, can you do that?
Can you hire a boss?
Can you hire a visionary?
Jeff, are you
You hired me, now I'm hiring him.
No,
Really
that's
good
that's a valid
question, though.
question, because it's like, yeah, why can't we, I mean, we like fundraising, we like the relationship side, we'll come to a meeting and tell the story. But scheduling the meeting, having somebody, like, can we hire a financial person, a developer? Like 4 areas go all in for one person and pay him, and he fundraises for $500,000 for Young Life Metro Spokane.
Can't, you're
And
hired.
we show up to meeting, right? I mean,
We already tried
if
to
we
get
wanna
him that
be-
job, he doesn't
yeah.
want it, so.
those are, yeah.
I don't
Didn't
know
Jeff
that we
Ansel try to
can
do
do
that?
that.
As long as he can bring his guitar, he'll be fine.
He could be the singing.
What's good, really? He's just playing the piano.
He's got Nordstrom's.
Got Nordstrom's playing the
Yeah.
piano.
Tip jar.
A Young Life tip
But
jar.
he's
is
happy
very
again.
Well, that's one of the rocks.
He is our Metro director, he's being seen a lot.
So how do you guys feel about that statement? How do you interpret it, that you can't be a technician and own an organization?
Well, just,
Why is he saying that?
I'll answer. On page 40, it says, don't you see if your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a job, and it's the worst job in the world because you are working for a lunatic, meaning yourself. And,
The fact that you just said that is very funny. I don't know why.
And putting so much in this room.
Yeah.
We're just the lunatics.
No, I feel like this last year and some of the conversations that like I'm having with Jeff, I had with Eric and another big donor in our area, but there's things that I know that I'm not, and I think Colin said it maybe last time or the time before, but there are skills within me that I feel like need to be developed, that I haven't developed yet, that I'm excited to develop those skills, and of finding these holes in our ministry of, oh, I don't have an activator to like go activate a ministry. And so it's like, well, I guess I got to go do that for a little bit. And maybe as I try to do this, that's definitely outside my comfort zone. I got to make sure the lights are on, because if I'm jumping out here, God's got to be my net and to catch me, because if not, then I'm going to fail. And that's my fear. Like if I don't jump, then nothing ever is going to happen. And so, we have to get outside, or I think, and Jeff just said it today when we were talking, it's like counterproductive. It's like we got to be a technician for a little bit in order to show people how to do it, and then we have to go away. And undercover boss, that was a good analogy. It's like we got to smile at our customers and show them how to do it, and then step back and say you're doing a great job, and encourage as we are the manager. And I think the really hard thing for me is one of those things I find joy in is that I'm good at being a technician. Why else did I come on staff? I think that's kind of all of us. We're great at running club and relationships, and so.
Well, and it talks about that in the book, that sometimes you can be really good at something. That doesn't mean that you necessarily want to start a business. And there's that tension, as an area director, I'm sure.
It is puzzling to me. I mean, when you go into an area and you create a new area, they have what they call a jump start, right? You go in, you talk to key people, you get a commitment from them, you raise some money, and then you hire somebody, and then all those people just go away. And you bring in somebody who's really good at doing the ministry, and then realize that you're saddling with this job of trying to do the fundraising, trying to create community relationships, and it just, I've never understood the corporate mentality that you get people on board just to get an area going, but don't tell them that this area is going to die if you go somewhere, or if you don't replace yourself with someone else that's equally committed. I just feel like that's one of the things that we're missing in our areas, is just a community that's committed. I mean, it breaks my heart to hear you guys talk about the things you do. When we're up at the retreat center, I'm just thinking, these people just need to be surrounded by great people, and they're doing an incredible ministry. The amount of ministry we're doing. I mean, that kid on the beach throwing starfish back in, these guys are throwing starfish at an alarming rate, how fast they're saving kids. And for some reason, the rest of us are just content to sit back with our hands in our pockets watching. Oh, that one skipped. I don't know, there's a disconnect there that we need to figure out.
Do you think it's like the abdication side of things? Do you think that there's a disconnect in bringing people alongside and growing them and empowering them? I mean, it's the chapter 4 that we start talking about Sarah and how she hires whoever Harry, and then just kind of lets him go. Instead of, I mean, you find out that doesn't work. Is that why people are standing on the sidelines?
Or are we not letting them be part of experiencing God's change of things? I think the most critical thing we can do is get people to be part of feeling what God is doing by seeing, by coming to club or going to camp or whatever. They have to see what God's doing if they're gonna be passionate about it. It has to affect them. It can't just be something they hear. They need to see it with their eyes.
So
Like
that sounds like a vision
story isn't
caster,
enough.
right? And that's what you find yourself being.
I
is
am
the
a vision caster. But
Which
it's the
is
most exciting part because you're bringing people into figuring out, getting to see what God's actually doing, which a lot of Christians are missing out. They're checking off church on Sunday and, I did God this week, but they're missing out on all God's miracles. If we can get them connected to the source of seeing how great God is, you don't have to convince them to do anything because they're gonna go after it because they fall in love with what God's up to.
I think it's a great example, Molly, of just saying you're a vision caster and you're thinking about the Brent Cunningham quote of 95%. Like, Brent's superhuman, so you have to kind of like take it and leave it with some of it. No one can be Brent Cunningham. But Molly's sweet spot's casting vision and thinking if that's the only way that she supervised people and developed people is continuing to keep the vision in front of them, whether they're involved with Young Life or not, it's something that moves them forward. And I think it helps to see something, because everyone gets lost and stuck in the moment, in the season. Campaigners, giving, why do I keep giving, serving, do I even want to be on committee? Just keeping the vision in front of them is a great way of doing it. And plus you get to access their heart and know what it is that compels them. So we need to be good inviters, and vision is a great way to invite people. And as much as our emails and our newsletters are helpful, there's nothing like an old-fashioned drink, yes, but also, that sounds really nice right now. Sorry, I digress. But there's nothing like an old-fashioned ask. When you meet with somebody and say, I've seen what you perk up to. I look on Emma and you always open my emails. I know that's creepy, but I notice. I notice you come to things, you've been so encouraging to me. I would love to do ministry with you. I think the way that I see the committee going, I would love for you to be a part of it and just to build it around like our passion. Like, there's nothing like an old-fashioned ask. It's better in the newsletter, it's better in the e-newsletter, and I think that we can get back to casting a vision and inviting people in. I think we get out of touch with people. We forget what makes them tick and forget to connect with them on a heart level.
That's probably because I'm the old person in the room.
The
I'm
wise,
still old school.
the wise sage.
The old sage.
Let me post that on Facebook.
Grandpa, the old sage.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'm thinking like, what can we do? And just as I listen and just hear you guys and kind of feeling stuck in some ways and passionate, chomping at the bit in others, I think one thing that would be really helpful is if there was a way to really access the hearts of your adults, your committee, your leaders, that you would know this is what they want, this is what they are excited about Young Life. I think it'd be helpful for you guys to know that. I'd love to team up with you guys to do a research project where perhaps do you guys all have a leader care person or someone in your area that like would enjoy making a 6-minute phone call to survey a leader with 5 questions, like what are your what drew you to Young Life? What's your strengths in Young Life? What's your weaknesses in Young Life? What holds you back from entering in with kids, and what draws you to it? Maybe something else that kind of fits a bigger picture, so that you would know this is overall what my people want.
Are you talking about, you're asking the leaders these questions?
I'm asking the area directors if they would want a person in their area, if we came up with 5 or 6 questions, I'll text you a sample of them, we'll refine a list. And someone other than you in your area, someone that this would be fun for them. A parent, a team, an area mom, a leader care person, a prayer coordinator, could just sometime over the next month and a half, ask all of your leaders, just a list of questions that would all be fun. None of them are performance-based, none of them are about you or their team coordinator, but just about what motivates them, what makes them tick, what holds them back. And then you would see that, and we could look at that all across Spokane. Maybe we would do it in Central Washington next, and Lewiston, and Palouse. But we'd start here, and just see what rises to the top. Corporately, across all of these areas here, was it 8 or 9 areas? 8 areas around here?
6?
6, yeah.
Depends on where you go.
Be incorporating Palouse. But, and also your individual, we could like hand you the results. So you'd see, oh my gosh. Maybe one of the questions is, do I want to develop in my leadership? And that you'd see that 75% of your leaders do. And you're like, I've been playing the accountability game. I need to play the development game. Or maybe it's vice versa. Only 20% of your leaders want to be developed in their leadership. And you're like, I just need to hold them accountable. And see what they have, what they bring. I think it would help just to know how much effort to bring people in, and how much the people around you have strengths they want to bring to the table. Or if they're all just like, just you keep going. And that would be like the sad result. I hope that wouldn't be it. I think there would be some ahas in that could help.
Very much so.
I think it's a good idea.
It's a great idea.
Could I write
It's later on in the book. It's ask every single question that you can think of. So
You're ahead of me.
No, the audiobook's kind of tricky.
I'm on the audio
Yeah.
too.
Way
I'm on it
farther
too.
than.
I drive more than most of you. But I mean, what do you guys think of that? I mean, would that be valuable to you as an area director? Because I mean,
I think it's
I'm
good.
2 steps removed from that. But
If you could get somebody on the committee to do that, that would be,
can you all think of somebody on your committee or in your orbit that would be like, oh, I'd love to do that?
It'd be cool for the committee person to do it.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, think how enlightening that could be.
There could be a couple.
Either
people.
that or you
Yeah.
get fired at the end of it.
But none of the questions would be about your performance. It would all just simply be what makes them tick.
I think it'd be
It'd
great.
be kind of cool, because everybody's starting to talk. It's like
And they talk more freely with somebody besides the area director, I think, on that.
I'll run some stuff by you guys.
yeah, I think we've got some some leaders or committee people that would be interested in that.
Maybe part of it too is people, I think the chief human desire is to be known and loved. And I think fundamentally people want purpose. And I think we do that by talking about the why more than we talk about the how. There's a lot of that trend going on right now in some of these studies, but maybe it's reminding people what it's like to be a high school kid and when they come and two thoughts, and unfortunately I gotta scoot to class, but one is, I don't know if this is relatable or not, but every November we give, my talk to the Dutch Bros staff is not, November's a weird time, right? Stress levels are higher and all this stuff. I do not give the talk, be nicer to customers and remember that, be extra nice. I don't give that talk. The talk I give is, remember that the customers that are coming through, statistically, 88% of them hate their job. So 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people that come through every day are not happy with their jobs. That's number one. Number two, that stresses around November, December, and January revolve around family, relationships, and finances. Meaning, every single person that comes through our stands over the next 4 months especially, or 3 months, are stressed and they're concerned and they're asking if they're worth anything. And just remember the role that you play within that moment. Like you play a profound role in that moment. That might be the only moment that they get to where they're feeling affirmed, and that's your role, right? Not once did we ever talk about customer service. What we did is talk about the why is this whole deal, and why, because we care about people. And I think people will respond to that. And then I had one last thought, I'm blanking on it. I don't remember, so it must not have been important, but. And that's true for you. I mean, remember that leaders that you guys are working with, they're all asking like, do I belong? Do I do an okay job? Why doesn't Timmy or Tommy or Laura like me? Like, I feel like I don't have a good campaign group, but KJ does. And remember that they're all asking those questions. And so the moment that we get to play in our area lives is quite profound with our adults and with our leaders as well. And they need guidance, and they need help, and they need someone. They are asking the same questions that everyone else asking. I remember the editor of Time Magazine was speaking to us once, and about 2 years ago, I forget her name, Anne or something, but she had a great comment, and she said, fundamentally, leadership is about two things. People will always ask these two questions, no matter what your organization is. Where are we going, and do you care about me? I think that's as true in young life, as it is business, as it is in politics, as it is in students. They all fundamentally ask those two questions. And I can tell you that, and I don't know if this is relevant or not, but my time as a Young Life Area Director, I developed the belief that there's no such thing as a strong area without a strong committee. I've never seen it. I still have never seen it. And so when I took over Littleton, my number one job, the reason I graduated that committee off was because I knew that it wasn't going to get the job done. I just knew that we'd never be strong without that foundation of a strong committee. And that's where I put pretty much all my effort that first year and a half was building a committee. And that's what I wanted to do, build a college level committee. That was my whole vision inside my head. Yeah, we ran club and did all that, but my primary focus was I got to get that committee built. Because if I get that committee built, that's going to be the foundation all these clubs stand on.
What do you mean college level?
I wanted all A-listers. I mean, maybe that's a little arrogant, but I'm like, I don't want anyone on my committee that wouldn't qualify for a college board. That was my 22-year-old arrogant self. I want people that are amazing. Because I bought into the idea. No such thing as a strong area without a strong committee. So no one but all-stars. And yeah, maybe they wouldn't really qualify for a college board, but I wanted someone who was above and beyond. I wasn't going to take a warm body. And I said no to a lot of people who wanted to be on committee. I was like, I really appreciate it. You know, what about this? I mean, I was really particular. And that committee is what got us through the tragedy. It ended up being everything for us. And then we did grow clubs, and we did grow the area, and we did become healthy financially. It was all because of that committee. Cool. I'm sorry, guys, I got to skip the class.
Oh, I really appreciate it.
I'm gonna get fired. I told you last time we go over the situational leadership model. I'll save this for next time. But next time, why don't you just read chapter 5, and we'll cover 4 and 5, and we'll do this next time. But we're going to start with this because I think you'll appreciate that in terms of developing people and so forth.